Hello everyone, it's me, your average bonehead, Jay. And let's wrap up this month by talking about the other Alvin and the Chipmunks Halloween special that I watched a lot when I was a kid. Alvin and the Chipmunks meet the Wolfman. There's not really much more left to preference when it comes to this, so let's just get right into it. Our story begins with Alvin having a nightmare about a werewolf, which wakes everyone up. Alvin has had recurring nightmares about monsters chasing him, but the ones on werewolves happen more frequently ever since their new neighbor moved in, as Alvin doesn't trust the guy. The next morning, when the boys go to school, we learn that they are part of the production of the school play of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where Alvin plays the titular Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I bet the story makes for a great NES game. While doing rehearsals, Alvin accidentally messes up one of his lines, and he's given a bit of acting advice from the director, who... Look, I already made all the jokes I could about the guys from the last one. Even though this guy's existence writes the jokes for me, I don't think I have it in me anymore to make them.
Now remember, you are an actor! Okay, now we're gonna take it again, right? From the top!
It is also here where we learn that Theodore is being bullied, and his friend Eleanor tells him that he shouldn't let this happen.
Don't let Nathan bully you. It's not like I give him permission.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the Chipettes, Brittany, Jeanette, and Eleanor are in this movie. And it's only occurring to me now that it's weird that they weren't in the last one. And while I'm still on the topic of the Chipettes, since Theodore is the one who goes through a transformation in this movie, Eleanor is the only one of the three who actually is important, and Brittany and Jeanette kind of just exist throughout this movie. Though they do get funny moments, mainly with Brittany being assigned to play the role of Tree.
Named Willa, who cries a lot. No, you're a weeping willow, Brittany.
And by the looks of it, she's the only one playing that role. Anyways, wanting to make his role as the main character even more fun and scary, Alvin ends up using his own monster chemistry set and mixes two dangerous chemicals together, creating a huge explosion that can be seen all the way across town. Which then leads to my favorite joke in the movie.
Oh, please don't ring, don't.
So Dave heads down to school. Luckily, the school has a special program that covers any and all damages caused by Alvin, and the principal states that she won't have to worry about it anyways, as she is going into early retirement.
Why, you don't look a day over 50.
I'm 31!
Oh.
But she brings up that her real concern is Theodore, due to him consistently being bullied, but since he's never come to her for help, she can't do anything about it. I'm not exactly sure that's how principaling works, but oh well, for the story to happen. And she does acknowledge that while Alvin is a troublemaker, he does look out for his brother. That, unfortunately, does not make up for almost blowing up the school again. Later that evening, the Chipmunks and Chipettes are walking home in the dark, and Alvin ends up hearing something that he thinks is a monster. Of course, the others don't believe him at first, until they all hear enough noises, and all end up believing it is a monster. The two groups end up splitting up and rushing home as fast as possible. But while the Chipmunks are on their way home, they end up running through their neighbor's yard and trampling his rare flowers, which annoys him to the point where he, Lawrence Talbot, tells Dave to keep his kids on their side of the property. Due to some of his actions though during this conversation, Alvin continues to suspect that there's something suspicious about him. And before Dave could start scolding Alvin for what he did today, the phone rings as it's Miss Miller complaining that Alvin has scared the Chipettes. So while Dave is dealing with that phone call, the boys end up watching some TV, and we see one of Alvin's favorite shows, a monster-themed fortune teller, which, based on what she ends up saying, Alvin ends up suspecting that Mr. Talbot is a werewolf, which Simon and Theodore obviously don't believe, due to the fact that Alvin has basically accused everyone in town for being a monster at some point. Due to all the destruction Alvin managed to cause in under the span of 24 hours, Dave finally puts his foot down and revokes all of Alvin's monster privileges, and puts him in rehabilitation, which also means he is not allowed to star in the play anymore. So in order to fill the spot, the role is split into two parts, as Simon will take all of Dr. Jekyll's parts, and to give him a confidence boost, Theodore will take all of Mr. Hyde's parts. We cut back to Alvin to see how he's doing in rehab, and we see that he's handling his new life about as well as she did. Luckily for him, a monster book that he got from the show he watches just arrived in the mail, and he tricks Theodore into giving it to him. Upon opening it, he ends up throwing away the necklace that was inside, and Theodore plans to give it to Eleanor. Before Alvin can get too comfortable with the book, Simon comes in to do an inspection to make sure he's not smuggling any monster-related things. And after a joke so good that Amphibia would later do it many years later,
how did you even walk?
he manages to give Simon the slip, but he ends up revealing that he has the book to Simon that night anyways, as he wants his help to prove that Mr. Talbot is a werewolf. Simon reluctantly agrees, and we get our first song of the special. To me personally, I like the songs in this movie more than the last one, but once again, there's only 3 of them, and I don't think they're that well spaced out to the point where it makes you end up forgetting, once again, this is supposed to be a musical. After the song, the two get into a scuffle due to their search bearing them monsterless, and while that's going on, Theodore finally ends up giving that necklace to Eleanor as a gift. You know, these two really are adorable. But while Theodore is on his way back home, he gets attacked by something. The next day, we learn that Theodore changed overnight, as now he's changed his hair, likes meat, has grown more confident, and is actually able to be scary during the rehearsals of the play. We quickly learn why he's like this though, as that night, when Simon is trying to get Alvin to finally say that there's no such thing as monsters, it turns out Theodore has been turning into a werewolf. The two don't see this as a completely bad thing yet, as Theodore is more like a puppy right now and not actually dangerous. We get another song about the two of them dealing with this. Unfortunately, Theodore's new confidence comes at a price, as people are realizing that he's also becoming a jerk. This leads to Brittany doing her one good deed of the movie, and standing up for Jeanette after Theodore insulted her, even though she also insulted her.
Okay, fashion disaster. They've got Jeanette doing makeup.
But the one who dislikes Theodore's new personality the most is Eleanor, as right now she doesn't want anything to do with him. Meanwhile, Alvin and Simon are desperately trying to find a way to cure Theodore, because every night he turns into his werepuppy form and causes damage. So left without any options, the two head to the TV station where the fortune teller hosts her shows. Luckily, she's still there, and she ultimately ends up telling them that the only way they'll be able to turn Theodore back to normal without having to, kill him, is hitting him with something silver before the next full moon, which will make the transformation permanent. Alvin ends up stealing Mr. Talbot's cane and tries to use it to turn Theodore back to normal, but he can't bring himself to whack his little brother with the silver cane, and then Theodore finds out and breaks it, which causes Alvin to get blamed for that. So with no other options, it is now the night of the full moon, as well as it also happens to be the night of the play. Things are okay at first, but once the moon is out, Theodore's transformation is completed, and he turns into a werewolf and goes crazy. This forces Alvin and Simon, as well as the Chipettes, to ad-lib the play, including cross-dressing, so no one would suspect a thing. And I gotta just love their director's reaction to this. Poor guy is literally watching his life's work, or last 8 months of his life's work, completely crumbling in front of him.
I missed my bus.
While that's all going on, Dave heads over to Mr. Talbot's house and tries to apologize for Alvin breaking his cane. But while he's there, the full moon also comes out and it's revealed that Mr. Talbot is, in fact, a werewolf. Dave tries running off to warn everyone at the school, but then he ultimately ends up getting himself knocked out. And this ultimately led Mr. Talbot to the school. Meanwhile, the Chipmunks and the Chipettes continue trying to stall for time, as well as keeping Theodore under control. Theodore ends up attacking them though, and eventually ends up cornering Eleanor. But right before he can attack her, he sees her necklace and remembers the time when he gave it to her. And because of that, he realizes the monster he has become and goes into hiding. Mr. Talbot ends up attacking Alvin, Simon, as well as Brittany, Jeanette, and Eleanor on stage, and then Theodore shows up just in time to defend them. He ends up striking Mr. Talbot, which cures them both. Because Talbot scratched Theodore as a werewolf, when Theodore scratched him back, it turned them both back to normal. And the play was a success, as everyone thinks that was all according to plan, meaning their director's reputation is saved. And later at the celebration party, we learn the reason why Mr. Talbot even moved into town in the first place is because he is going to be the new principal. And while he's giving his introduction speech, Dave finally catches up with him and almost whacks him in the head with a stick. Luckily, the Chipmunks stop him and all is forgiven, and in fact, Mr. Talbot is grateful for Theodore finally saving him from his curse. Then the Chipettes remember,
Hey! Isn't we supposed to be having a fiesta?
and we get a dance party. Don't worry, this was before that cliche was everywhere, and our final song.
Then what in the wide, wide world could it be? All you want to scream and shout.
As the movie ends on that note. Okay, honestly, I like this one a lot better than the last one. Both movies are good, don't get me wrong, but I feel like with the story this one presented, everything felt a lot more personal, especially due to the fact that Theodore has his big transformation into becoming a werepuppy at around the halfway point, opposed to Alvin turning into a toon in the last 10 minutes. It gives more time for the characters to react to what's going on. Plus, this one has the added bonus of just having the Chipettes in there, and Brittany and Jeanette's antics are just funny in this. Plus, it gives Theodore's side of the story a bit more emotional weight to it. Also, I find the jokes, especially when it comes to Alvin being put into rehab, to be especially funny. And on top of that, this one feels a bit better paced, and there's not as many plot holes that leave me scratching my head. But don't get me wrong, like I said, even though I think this movie is better, the other one is also still good too. I recommend both these movies for your little ones on Halloween, and like I said before, if you're curious, I recommend you check them out too. Now, I'm your average bonehead Jay, and I wish you all a happy Halloween, and a good night.
Get close to